Happy Wednesday. It's hump day. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. I'm Jay Zawoski. That's Greg Boyson. Over there is Mario Tirabassi.
Hello.
Joey's over there. Matt Peck's way over there prepping. He is sweating with the juices of prep for the late upcoming CHGO Bulls show.
Just sounds gross.
It is gross.
Sounds
yeah.
very gross.
Well, we were going to tell you.
I don't want to watch that show anymore.
We thought you wouldn't fight us over here.
You need some.
We got some Mando in the
apply
cabinet
some
for you.
Mando over there before the show.
No, Matt smells delightful as always, and he's not sweating at all. But he's working hard for your Bulls content. Thanks for being with us. We love you guys. A bunch of people have already hit like. Thank you. If you're not one of them, do it. Do it now. Hit that like button for us on the YouTube page. And if you're a podcast listener, thank you there. Make sure you're following or subscribed on your favorite app. Don't just find us. If you follow or subscribe, it pops up, boom, right in your feed. As soon as the episode's published, you don't have to wait. You don't have to go searching for it. Makes life easier on you. Helps us out big time. Just like those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks you to the guy who just gave us a thumbs down.
Nice.
We appreciate that. Hope you get hit by a bus later on today.
It's all about balance in life.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess so.
I think that was
You get the likes, you get
that
the...
was Mario's brother friend who did that just to mess with
Probably, yeah, sure.
But I appreciate someone logging on just to hit the dislike button.
Yeah, no, it's
Appreciate you, buddy.
It's good.
Thank you.
It's good life.
No,
Greg and I are not wearing the same shirt.
No.
I was going to wear that
See,
today.
I was worried you were going to do that.
And I
was gonna
figured,
text you.
know what? Someone's going to wear it, so I know I'll be safe tomorrow.
I didn't wear it yesterday because I figured you were going to wear it yesterday.
Yes.
So then I was like, shit, he's going to wear it today. But see, we just need a third player now, so we could each have a different
That's
player.
true. Yeah.
Same style shirt. Mine is the
Hashtag
new-
retire 28.
Mine is the new 27C Hall of Fame 24. I don't know who that's for.
I don't know
Mario's
either.
It's for Lucas
wearing
Reichel.
the classic 98C.
Yes,
Um,
classic.
Yes, it's
For-
a year old now.
For grizzled veterans.
Yes.
Number 98.
So
It's good stuff.
No, we just need the Levshunov 8-bit shirt. I'm sorry, number
The 55.
Number 55.
Well,
16
it could be one player that we'll talk about today, or it could be another player we'll talk about today for 55, depending on how old school you want to be.
Yeah, and you started the show talking about balance, I think was the word you used. And, it's very well balanced.
say balance.
Pyramids. They don't tip
Usually,
over very often.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
So if you
they're
missed
done
it,
well.
today at allchgo.com, Mario published the first. I think you're going to do several of these throughout the year, right? Like rankings
Nope.
as they go.
These are once a year.
All right.
The pyramids. I did one for 22, going into 22-23, and one last summer for going into 23-24. So this is the third one on the all CHGO platform. But no, it's a preseason going into the year. Just a way to talk about the prospects system, see where guys are at, and this time of year throughout summer, because we're all looking for hockey content and things to create
We sure are.
engagement. A lot of people will come out with lists, listing the top 10, 25, 50, 100 prospects or whatever within the systems across the league or within their own system in the Blackhawks. And I always feel like you get into these nitpicky, well, I had him at number 4, but he should be at number 9, and vice versa, like all this stuff. And really, when you look at it, a lot of these guys you're splitting hairs when you're trying to put them numerical. So why not group them together in different groups?
I like that approach.
And so the pyramid, which is not an original idea, but pyramid allows you to say, okay, at the very top tier are your very special players. At the very tip top, it's the smallest portion because usually you may only have one or maybe 2 if you're lucky at a time, players like that. And then as you go down, you can have more players because more often than not, a lot of prospects are just, guys. They have good NHL careers or average or they never make the NHL. And then some guys are special and franchise changers. So going into this year, I got the list in front of me here. 40, what did I have here? Let's see. 45 players that met the criteria of eligibility to be a Blackhawks prospect, which, if you didn't read the article posted this morning, my eligibility is over 90 NHL games played or older than 23 by the start of the season. You are no longer a prospect. Some people were saying, well, why is Connor Bedard not there? Well, because Connor Bedard, even though he would, based on those standards, still be a prospect, he is not. Like, we can all agree, he's a special case. He was in the tier 1 last year of franchise-changing special type of player. He showed it last year. He's an NHL player. He's not a prospect. So, yeah, that's why he was not mentioned on the list.
I agree with you on that. I think it's I do enjoy, though, when the prospect rankings come out and the Hawks are always near the top because Connor Bedard's on there.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It helps skew things like, hey, they got the top prospect system in the world.
Right,
they have Connor Bedard in it.
Yeah. Well, even without him,
without him, it's still very
they're
good.
still in the public. They are ranked very, very high because things are going well for the prospect system.
All right, so reveal yourself.
All right. Should we go top to bottom or bottom to top?
That's a good question.
I say bottom to top.
I think so too.
You
but
can't
I will
build
say,
a pyramid from the top.
and pointing
That's
the
true.
thumb at myself, we have a tendency to start the show with more long-winded thoughts, and as we run out of time, we rush through things. So let's get through the bottom tier quickly and spend more time towards the top.
All right. So basically, it's cut up into 5 tiers rather. The fifth one is everybody else. These are guys that, like, they're long shots to play in the NHL. Some of them are international. They're long shots to even play in North America. Level 5 is everybody else. So that's everybody else.
Okay.
We've talked about them.
Take that, everybody else.
Yeah.
So we'll start with tier 4 here. This is how I describe basically an average prospect, more of a depth role, low NHL ceilings. I put a number of guys in here. Jalen Lipin, Isaac Phillips, Victor Schornberg, Antti Sorella, Louis Crevier, Ryder Ralston, and then the trio of third-round picks this year, John Mustard, AJ Spellacy, and Jack Pridham. I think these, for some of these guys, especially like Crevier and Phillips, we've seen probably enough of them at the pro level that we're getting a sense of, like, okay, they're probably topping out as a number 7 NHL defenseman, which is totally fine. Like, that is a good spot to be in if you're a pro. Like, that means you have a shot to make NHL rosters. But I just think, as far as, some of these older guys here within the system, like, that's kind of where they're at. And each year that passes, each draft class that comes in, especially with the defensemen, those guys are falling a little bit down the pecking order. So I still have them listed here. I still think that they have, growth and development, even as 22, 23, 24-year-old defensemen or 23-year-old defensemen. There's still growth there that they can tap into. They're going to have to really work hard for an NHL opportunity, given the way that the roster's been structured up this year, and with the prospects coming in behind them. But I think there's still something there that those guys could tap into.
Yeah, this tier, not a lot to debate about, really. I think guys like Lipin and Phillips and Crevier, we kind of know what they are at this point. And with, those might have been guys 2 seasons ago. You could be like, oh, they might be NHL players. And now you've seen the influx of talent. They've been going the wrong way in these lists.
Yeah.
Schornberg, I still like Schornberg, but he is a long shot still to be an NHL guy. I think he can provide like that energy type player, but they've drafted other guys like that. So Ryder Ralston, I'm a big fan of basically because he's been really cool with us, but I still think he can be, a fourth liner NHL type guy, but he's another guy that if some of these other picks from the last 2 years progress and he's just going to get passed up. I will be interested to see where the 3 picks from this past year and Mustard, Spellacy, and Pridham, where they wind up on next year's list. Hopefully they're at least up to the level 3 at that point after another year of development.
Yeah,
how John Mustard's not at the tippy top of the pyramid, I don't know.
But it was hard not to put him in tier 1.
I know. I'm a little peeved by that, but I'll let it go this year. Next year, you better be up there.
Yeah, but I think, kind of to your point, Mario, on these guys, like there is NHL potential in them. It's just limited NHL potential.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely still Mustard is going into college with Providence. Pridham's going to Boston University. Spellacy is going to have a more elevated role this upcoming season in the OHL with Windsor. So like they're all taking steps in their responsibilities, upping their competition level in the cases of Pridham and Mustard. So it's just seeing what they do this year after their draft year is going to be really important for where they go from here now. Now you've been drafted. You're an NHL prospect. A team has put their faith in you to be a part of the future, to go on a upward trajectory in your development path. And now you have some resources at the NHL level too, which with Ralston, when we talked with him, it was that when he was at Notre Dame still.
Yep, 2 years ago. Yeah.
He talked about the difference between being drafted by the Avalanche and then being acquired by the Blackhawks, and how they handled their prospects differently and how much more investment there was from the Chicago side, communication and accessibility and things like that to the NHL club. So I think with Spellacy and Pridham and Mustard going into next year, I have a good sense that if they follow those trajectories, they'll be up a tier.
Right. And they're third rounders. I mean, if you get a guy that's third rounder and becomes a depth player, that's a good pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of third rounders don't even sniff the NHL.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, if you go through like Hockey DB and you look back at drafts past, what's really nice about Hockey DB is they've got the player name, position, where they're drafted, and what they've done in the NHL.
Yeah, you could sort.
There's a lot of blank spaces in a lot of those guys, and that's just the norm. Like, we've talked about this a lot. Like, I'm sure we're going to see Marcel's name here soon, or not. Is he in your bottom tier? That's the thing, is like people get excited about him because he's big and he's friendly and he's those sort of things, but he's very unlikely to play an NHL game, or aside from maybe a handful.
Yeah.
Down the road, but like that's not a guy that they're probably pegging as an NHL player.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they tried to do with him specifically is let's fast track your development because he was out of the queue and he's physically way ahead of other guys in his age range.
Yeah.
In as far as development, he's a huge guy. So if you're playing against 16, 17, 18-year-olds in the queue as a 19-year-old who's already that big, like 6'5", 230, like you're just going to throw people around. It's not really going to do anything for your development. So that's why they signed him to an AHL deal, because it was just like, let's get you playing professionally. Let's play you against men and see if that, ramps up the competition to a level where you're going to have to be challenged. So he played most of last season in the ECHL with the Indy Fuel. Got a handful of games with Rockford. I feel like that's going to be the case again this year with him.
Yeah. When you look at
especially
roster,
with the way Rockford's shaping up. So, yeah, I mean, there's different ways to go about development, and with a guy like Marcel, if he plays through the ECHL, plays up into the AHL, and eventually plays an NHL game or two or a handful or whatever, like that's a success story for a guy who's a 5th round pick, who was playing overseas, came over to Canada, and then worked his way up the ladder in a NHL system.
All right, tier 3 coming up next here on CHGO Blackhawks. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Coors Light. We've been telling you about Coors Light for months now, and summer is not going anywhere. I see a lot of people like writing their farewells to summer. We still got 2 months of summer left. Don't forget, our seasons have changed. Right? I know in the calendar, it's still pretty warm on Halloween, unless it snows, which can happen too.
Didn't it last year?
It did snow last year. But the year before it was like 80 degrees.
Right, yeah.
So plenty of summer left to go, and that means plenty of opportunities to choose chill. And when you choose chill, by now, you've got to choose that Coors Light. And look, even if it cools off and you're watching a Bears game and they're only up by 21 points at halftime, might be a little stressful.
Yeah, it might be.
Might need to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. When you do, you know it's going to be cold because it's mountain cold refreshment. When those mountains are blue, it is as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and say it with me, cold baked for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light, like I said, mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as your Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door right now with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
And if you want to look cool and protect your precious eyeballs while chilling, our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with their amazing premium Polaroid shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is our favorite independent sunglasses company, offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all your outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. No matter what tier of the Prospect Pyramid you're on, they have the perfect glasses to go with it. And plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, you don't sweat it. Shady Rays has the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, but you will unless you're a weirdo, exchange them for a new pair or worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our wonderful, beautiful, and talented listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Just head over to ShadyRays.com, use the promo code CHGO for 35% off your Polaroid sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
300,000 people.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people, my friends.
That's a lot. All right, Tier 3, Mario.
Tier 3. As I said in the in the posts in the article, a prospect
I can't
system,
read, so
that's fine. A prospect system is only as good as the middle of it, because if you don't have a solid middle of your system,
that's right.
You don't have a lot of growth for guys to go upwards, right? So I think this is a pretty good system or a pretty good spot for the Blackhawks system to be in, because they have a lot of guys that I feel like are in that spot where they're good prospects. They have, a better than not chance of playing an NHL role as a complementary player or a depth player. So we have some good options here, guys that have already played in the NHL or are a year into their Ice Hogs careers. Landon Slaggert, Colton Dock, Aiden Thompson, Paul Ludwinski, Ryan Green, Dominic James, Wyatt Kaiser, Roman Kantsarov, Nolan Allen, Nick Lardis, Adam Guyan, Ilya Safonov, Gavin Hayes, Martin Misiak, Samuel Savoie, and 2 first-round picks this year, Sasha Boisvert and Merrick Benacker.
Wait a minute. Clearly there's a typo. You have Samuel Savoie level 3?
I do, yeah. All right. Well, Jay, I think you need to choose chill.
Go get some.
Yeah.
Go get some chill from the.
Yeah. Let's listen to your own advice. Choose some chill there. Yeah. Look.
Ridiculous.
I think within this range, I think you have a lot of guys that the arrow is pointing up. I didn't go through it this year and look at tier 2 and say, you know what, guys have got knocked down a peg. I think all of these guys, there's a few from 4 last year that have moved up to 3, which is great, and a lot of guys that are still within this range, but the arrow is pointing up on pretty much all of them. And you look at Slager, and you look at Doc, and you look at Kaiser and Nolan Allen. Like, these are guys that coming into this training camp are kind of at that top of that Rockford roster, trying to bump up into the NHL roster, and there's going to be competition for them to either push for an NHL spot, or they're going to create a really competitive Rockford team that is going to be pretty young. A lot of these guys in this range as well. Hayes and Savoie and Ludwinski, like they're going to be rookies in Rockford this year. And so if you have a competitive team, if you have top players that probably could be in the NHL, but they're in the AHL as young guys, like that's a really good problem to have. And that's a good way to up the competition level, not only, to try and make the NHL team, but also to get time and to get significant time in the AHL as well.
Yeah, I don't. Aside from Savoie, I don't see any. I think you're right on it with this one. I'm not really saying. I don't know. Maybe I'm not as high on Miziak as others, but it could just be a lack of exposure to him. And maybe I would have. Well, we'll get to it, but I think maybe Kanserov could be in a higher level based on what he's done so far in his career. But I think you're pretty spot on with these rankings, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Kanserov, I feel like he could be towards the front of the line in tier 3, but I think for me, what he's done so far in Russia has been really impressive. I just want to see let's see him do it again. Let's see him do it because doing it 1 year, in the KHL as a young guy is impressive. Let's see him build on that, and then if and when he comes to North America, let's see what he does from there. Same as Safonov. Like, he's had some pretty solid KHL years, and I still think like there's a lot of upside there. I just want to see him continue to do a little bit more, and then if and when he comes over to North America, see what he does when he first gets here.
Yeah.
As far as those cases go, I mean, European guys, it's hard to kind of like not only see them as much, but also kind of gauge what they do in Europe compared in the prospect world, at least compared to guys you see play in the Canadian leagues or in college or in the USHL. Like it's a little bit different.
Yeah. I feel like also in terms of like actually coming to play here, Kanserov feels like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
While Safonov is kind of like, there's
like
been
on the fence,
a lot of question about if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah. He's still pretty young, though, Safonov.
Yeah.
I think he's only 22 or turns 22 this season.
Yeah.
So, I would like to see Kanserov hit that second tier when we have this show next year. I think he's appropriately put there, but his arrow is pointing up.
Just for clarity, by the way, he turned 23 in May.
Okay. So he's still, I think he has just one, Safonov, I believe, has one more year left on his Russian deal.
Mm-hmm.
Kanserov still has 2 more years.
2 more, yeah.
But he's also 2 years younger.
This season and next.
His arrow's pointed up for sure. Safonov was a disappointment last year. He took
his deal's up after the season.
Yeah, he took a step back last. He dealt with some injuries, but the year before, he filled in as team captain when Radulov was hurt. It was a better team. This year, his numbers dipped a little bit. So we'll see what happens this upcoming season. I mean, KHL is starting
soon,
very soon.
Yeah.
Other guys that I would like to see move up from this next. I mean, Nick Lardis is a guy that had a really good post-draft season, but let's see him do that.
I feel like if he didn't miss, a third of the season last year, basically with injury, he was on a 50-goal pace in the OHL. If he didn't get hurt and kept that pace, I probably would have him in tier 2.
Right. I think he'll be there next season if he does what he does, and then the 2 first rounders from this year. You gotta see some more. Hopefully they'll be in that second tier, but
yeah,
that's you gotta earn. There's a lot of good prospects in this system, and just because you were drafted in the first round doesn't mean you're automatically one of the best prospects. A lot of teams it probably does, but it just shows you how deep this roster. I know we're getting a lot of chatter in the chat about Wyatt Kaiser and why he's in this group.
See, I like Wyatt Kaiser.
I think people are taking this as like don't take this tier as like we don't think they're going to be good.
No,
this means he's going to be a third pairing, productive defenseman.
As I,
which is probably about where he is.
Yeah, right. And maybe we should have laid this out here for those that didn't read the article. When we're talking about these tiers, like we said, first, the bottom tier, level 5, is just everybody else. It's just guys that are just outside shots, vastly unknown, or just it's very unlikely that they're going to get up, into the, professional ranks and do anything of substance. Level 4, average prospect, depth guy, a low NHL ceiling, but not saying that it's impossible for them to be an NHL player. This level 3, good prospect, complementary player. Think about your third pair, maybe pushing second pair defensemen, guys that could start in net in the NHL, be a good backup. Guys that are playing in your third or fourth line, forward wise. And some examples I put here, guys like Andrew Shaw, Brian Bickle, Dave Bolin, Johnny Oduya, like guys like that, where like they'll play in the NHL.
Hugely important pieces.
They are important, but they are not the star players that you hinge your team on.
I think that describes Wyatt Kaiser perfectly. I know a lot of people are higher on him, but I think he is that 4th, 5th, or 6th defenseman. But also, again, shows you how many good defensemen are in.
Right.
This, well, you have Nolan Allen in this tier 2, and I think that's appropriate. Like Nolan Allen, to me, is a third pairing defenseman. Could be a very good third pairing defenseman, but when you have Levshunov and you have Vlasic already on your team, and Korchinski and Del Mastro.
Well, I mean, there's 3 of your top 6.
Yeah,
if things go the way we think they're going to,
right?
You've already got 3 of your top 6 checked off.
Yeah, and you have Alex Vlasic.
I had him. I had Vlasic, Korchinski, and Levshunov.
Yeah,
and Levshunov.
Yeah,
and if Kaiser turns out to be, I just don't think he's a top pair guy. I don't think he can hit that.
We're talking about when this team's ready to contend, right? When they're pushing to win a couple rounds, maybe even conference final, eventually Stanley Cup final. Where will these guys be if they all sort of pan out? And I think that's where we're at. I think with Kaiser, this is a huge year for him because Levshunov's on the horizon. He's going to be here probably next season, I would imagine. I think maybe even part of this year. You never know.
Maybe
he could get a chance. Yeah,
he's going to have his opportunities to earn spots, but they brought in TJ Brody. They brought in Alec Martinez. Like there's not as many open spots as there were. And don't forget, you still have Isaac Phillips and Louis Crevier, who we don't rank as high as Kaiser, but I think and we saw this last year, the Hawks are more willing to put those guys in the 7th defenseman role because they don't have as much invested in their development.
Right.
I think Kaiser really needs to kind of find himself a role on this team. I think the pressure's on him because this is going to be his best chance to make an impression to become a full-time NHL player for Chicago. Now, if he simply gets boxed out, he could be a trade candidate. And I'm sure there's a lot of teams around the league that look at that skill set and look at how he performed early and late last season. The middle, not so good, but came back really, really well, bounced back well, and showed a lot. He could have some trade value too. And when Kyle Davidson talks about assets and draft capital, it's not just draft picks. It's these young players that are also tradable. So this is a big year for him in Chicago. I think Wyatt Kaiser is going to have an NHL opportunity somewhere, but this could be his last shot for it here.
He's also in the mix for a contract extension after the season.
Yeah,
he's an RFA at the end of the year, so it's a contract year out of his ELC. So working his way into the NHL and playing a lot in the NHL is in the best interest of his pocket.
Blues are going to offer sheet him next year. Son of a.
Maybe that's their new strategy for team building.
Just offer sheet everybody.
Offer sheet every RFA possible. Yeah, I like Kaiser. I think he has a really good shot at pushing for an NHL spot this year. And if he's not there, he's probably the first guy out of Rockford that you call up, him or maybe Del Mastro, depending on how they shake out of training camp. But yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity there. There's a lot of skill there. There's a lot of talent there. It's just how much more than what we've seen is there. Like have we seen everything he can be? Is he Ian Mitchell or is he more than that? I think that's my biggest question.
That is a huge question, needs to be answered, because as we've talked about Ian Mitchell in the past, and we had someone respected in the hockey community say, like, he's not great at anything. What's the thing that Ian Mitchell is great at?
Right.
And we didn't really have an answer. He's not overly fast. He's not overly strong, not overly big. That doesn't put up big numbers. What's his thing? Wyatt Kaiser has to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
What is Wyatt Kaiser's thing? All right, the second tier, and really the final tier of our list, come up here on the other side on CHGO Blackhawks. But football is right around the corner, college football, the NFL. And when you want to place your wagers, you want to get good value.
You do.
You don't want to get ripped off. And that's why you want to use Circa Sportsbook. They've got those tight money line splits and their low hold models. Their games tried to be a minus 110 split on the Circa Sports menu. Unlike other sports books, which might use minus 115 or minus 120 splits, Circa Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets like futures and golf tournaments, especially when compared to other books. Speaking of that, Circa wants you to download and explore other sports betting apps to compare, because they're confident that when you do, you're going to be very happy with the lines they offer in comparison. Circa Sports also will not limit you if you're good. If you're having success wagering, they're not going to limit you. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books that will limit winning players. There's real people behind the Circa Sports brand that'll help resolve any issues you have quickly, unlike other books that use chatbots where you just type live agent over and over again until it gives up and connects you to a person. All aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main Circa Sportsbook at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also, be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. Those are all coming up with Bears season approaching. And they're with us for all of our Cubs Friday 120 clubs. And if you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyoureallywinning.com.
Yes. And what's a better way to spend your time before a sporting event than by sitting out on your tailgate? You've maybe got some Coors Lights that you've chilled. You're placing your sports wagers, and you're sitting right next to your beautiful, durable, Rugged Road cooler. Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring that they perform in the toughest conditions, whether you're on land or water. Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure and perfect for those freezing cold Coors Lights. Rugged Road's one of their most unique features of their coolers is that they're always float upright. You never lose a drink. They are lightweight, unlike other heavy-duty coolers. Rugged Roads are made with some of the best quality materials without compromising on performance. So they're super lightweight, easy to travel and transport, and super durable. Crafted to handle the toughest environments, Rugged Road coolers are built to last, ensuring that they can keep up with the adventure. Coolers are guaranteed to keep your contents cool for up to 7 days, but oftentimes much longer than that. So what you want to do is gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers, reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com. And when you do, use the promo code CHGO, and you're going to get 10% off of your Rugged Road purchase.
All right. Now we move on to Tier 2 and Mario Tirabasi's Prospect Pyramid.
Tier 2. So this is what we're talking about, a quality prospect, a guy that is very likely to have a long NHL career, have an impactful NHL career. Think of people in the Blackhawks history like Brian Campbell, Patrick Sharp, Nicholas Chalmerson, Tony Amani. Like,
thank you.
They were
that name first.
They were significant pieces of quality teams for the most part. Amani was probably the best player on some low quality teams, but
yes,
guys that had long NHL careers, put up good numbers, played significant roles. That's the kind of prospects that we're looking at, guys that probably have those futures ahead of them. In this tier are Frank Nazar, Kevin Korchinski, Drew Comezzo, Oliver Moore, Sam Renzel, Ethan Del Mastro, and 2024 second overall pick Artyom Levshunov. And I think the biggest thing that I want to stress here is I put Levshunov here, but I would put him, if we were doing this numerically, he'd be number 1 in the system right now. I would have him number 1. I'd have him at the front of the line of this tier 2. And it's not to say that I don't believe that he will be a top tier prospect down the road. I think right now I see him as being capable of being that number 1 defenseman, the guy that can, play huge minutes, play in all situations, play on the top pair, play a significant role for this team in the long term. Potentially he could become a franchise-changing guy. I just don't think when you talk about a prospect like Connor Bedard, you're putting Levshunov at that same level. And that's what I keep that top tier for.
Yeah, I think you put it well in your piece at allchgo.com. Go check it out. Where you plug this person in and your franchise is different.
Yeah.
Like the second Connor Bedard hit the ice for the Blackhawks, the team was different. And noticeably so. I don't think that when Artyom Levshunov makes his NHL debut, you're going to say, wow, this is a different team with this guy on the ice right away, right? I think it's going to get to that point at some point, but Bedard, you're talking about generational types, right? I think if we were doing this for the Sharks, that it would be Macklin Celebrini on this list, and that's it.
Yep.
Right? Like, there's very few guys that would probably fall into this category league-wide, let alone in Chicago. So, yeah, I think that you're correct in having Levshunov here, and I agree with you. He's our top prospect and pretty much everyone behind him. I wonder, though, you have Comesso in this, and I don't really have, I don't know, he hasn't gotten any NHL time, but he hasn't necessarily been dominant in Rockford. I'm a little surprised you had him this high at this point.
I still think the expectation is that he is the starting goalie of the future. I think they haven't gone and done anything to really go out there and grab anybody to put ahead of him. They have Adam Guyon, who's going to be going to college this upcoming year. Like he's down the road of development. I think Comesso in his first year in Rockford had a pretty decent rookie year for a goaltender, being kind of the 1A 1B with Jackson Stauber, like splitting time last year. I think he did a pretty good job. He was their go-to guy in the playoffs. I still think the opinion around the scouting community with him is still that he's going to be the NHL starter, and I think it's just a matter of time. I would love to see him have an improved year in Rockford. He's going to have some more competition with Soderblom coming down from the NHL and back to a level where he should be. So him and Soderblom will be probably again the 1A 1B in Rockford. I would like to see Comesso improve on what he did last year, to kind of further solidify. Okay, I see what made him a second round pick. I see what made the Blackhawks believe in him, that this is a guy that they're going to invest in for the future. Because through his college career, he was a go-to guy at Boston, had a lot of success. First year in Rockford, pretty solid rookie season. I haven't seen anything that makes me believe that he would be coming down a peg. Last
year in Rockford, for the record, by the way, 38 games played, 265 goals against, .906 save percentage. He was 18, 16, and 4. In the playoffs, they had 3 playoff games, 2.57 with a 915 save percentage. So better in the playoffs, smaller sample size, of course, but yeah, I mean, not awful, but also not like through the roof, like holy crap.
Sure,
Dustin Wolf in Calgary type stuff.
Yeah,
that's been going on over the last few years. But yeah, I still have faith. But I think would you say it's fair to say he's teetering between 2 and 3?
Yeah, I mean, he's not. He's definitely not like the strongest guy in tier 2. But I still feel like if I was on the fence about him, I'd still have him in this tier rather than be in tier 3.
Who else did you have on? Did you kind of struggle on their placement with? Was there anyone that you were kind of like?
No, I feel like most of these guys, I felt pretty confident being here. I know Korchinski played pretty much a full NHL season, but I still consider him a prospect because he didn't have that overwhelming impact that Connor Bedard did. Right. So I still see Korchinski as a prospect that is developing. This year will be, he'll get over the 90 game threshold in the NHL. I'm fairly confident in that. I'd love to continue to see development from him. He had his own growing pains in year 1 of his NHL career, but I think year 2 is going to be improved. I think he knows what to expect. So I kept Korchinski on the list because he still feels like that prospect that needs development time. Ethan Del Mastro I moved up from 3 to 2 this year because I feel like he was an AHL All-Star as a rookie. He was given the the Blackhawks threw him a bone at the end of the year, made his NHL debut. I think he's been on this development path where he's one of these guys that we talked about him the first prospect camp that we covered as CHGO. He was just a guy. It was just like you physically noticed him. Yeah. He looked like an NHL guy playing out there against the prospects. And as we said with Marcel, sometimes that hinders your development because you're just big and you can just be big against your peers. But with Del Mastro, it's the skill set has grown along with having the NHL, ideal NHL size and using that to his advantage. I think what we saw from him in Rockford this year was really impressive. I think he's pushing to be an NHL guy this year. He's going to have it's a long shot, but I think he's in that mix with Allen and Kaiser to push to be like considered, in that 6th, 7th defenseman role this year.
I think some people might, be, I don't know, disappointed is the right word, but maybe, you draft Levshunov 2nd overall. How is he not in the top tier?
Sure.
I think it's a lot harder for a defenseman to be considered that type of player at that age. Mm-hmm. Those type of guys rarely come along where they're elite from day one. Cale Makar.
Yep.
I mean, I still think it took.
But even Makar played what, a year or 2 years of college before.
Right. And I don't think his draft year, his first season after being drafted. I don't. If you went back in time and did a pyramid for the Avalanche, you wouldn't have had him at the tippy top of that pyramid. Probably
not. Yeah,
even a guy like Quinn Hughes he was very good his first full season, but you really wouldn't consider him elite until about 2 years ago,
right.
3 years ago. It takes so much time.
I mean, we're seeing that right now with Owen Power. He was his first overall pick. I mean, went back to college, and
took Rasmus Dahlin, his teammate, another former overall.
Right.
It took him like 5 years before people started going, okay, now I see why they took him.
And both those guys were like no question number 1 overall picks.
Right, yeah.
It was like these guys are for sure at the top of the draft, no question about it. So much like we talked about Bedard, people were doing like tank for power, like that. Like that was part of the conversation for I think here and other teams to throw things out the window for the opportunity to draft Owen Power, and even still he hasn't really been. Holy shit! Look at this guy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Dahlin is just getting there.
It's going to take a lot of time. But the fact that he's starting in this tier tells you that he's a special player. When you look at the only other defenseman in this tier is Del Mastro, and he worked his way up.
I have Sam Rinzel in here too as well.
Sorry, but he worked his way up too.
He was a
probably
guy. He was in. If I remember correctly, he was in 3 the first time around because he was drafted as a project pick.
And Del Mastro was a 3 last year, I believe. So
now you've seen these guys. Ramp up in the competition level. Rinzel was going from the USHL to college. Del Mastro was coming out of junior, going to Rockford. Like you see their progression continue as the competition level gets higher. That's really all you can hope for.
Those 3 guys there shows you why Kaiser's in 3, and it's not a slam on Kaiser to where you're like, oh, he sucks. No. Right. He's just not as you can't tell me that Kaiser's upside is better than Rinzel's upside right now. Ceiling, I
think the ceiling is higher for Rinzel.
I think Kaiser still might be a better. He could turn out to be better NHL player than Rinzel, but potential wise, and this is what this is all about.
Right, they're all prospects.
I think Rinzel. I'm a little more excited to see what he can do, and he has risen up these ranks, and Del Mastro has risen up these ranks. Part of the reason why other players might have gone down or stay where they were, didn't go up because other guys have gone up. These are always fun experiments, and again, I can't wait to see what this tier looks like next year.
Yeah, right.
Who's made the jump up into that tier?
Well, I'm glad we brought up some of these other defensemen around the league. Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin. Keep these names in mind as you're watching Korchinski and Levshunov and these guys develop. Like, even the best of the best don't come in and be great right away. And I saw in the chat today, and I know we've talked about it a lot this offseason, that there's a percentage of Hawks fans that are just saying Kevin Korchinski is going to spend this year in Rockford. I don't think that's the case. I think there might be a handful of games here or there where he goes back for a reset or comes back from an injury, but he seems to be in the Hawks' plans. And you got to be patient with the development of defensemen. And I know, a lot of people jumped on when the Hawks got Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. Is totally understandable. But the first couple seasons of Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook were tough.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys struggled.
Keith had 2 full years in the AHL before that.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Tom says, Cale Makar was 22 in his NHL debut. Like, this does not happen overnight. And Kevin Korchinski is specifically, because of his age, because of the situation where he couldn't play in Rockford, I don't want to say it's stunted, but I would not say, well, NHL defensemen usually become great in their 3rd or 4th year. And if it's year 3 of Kevin Korchinski and he's not looking great yet, I still don't think it's time to panic.
Right.
Because it's a year that, all things being equal, you probably wouldn't have been here.
Well, yeah, and I'll say another example is like Aaron Ekblad. He was a 1st overall pick. He was a rookie of the year in his first year as a teenager defenseman, but he's been solid, but he's never developed into that like elite tier of defenseman. You look at, has he ever really been in a Norris consideration? No. But would you say he's been bad? No. Like, it's taking defensemen, 1st round picks, high 1st round picks. Like, you have 90% of the time you have to give them a couple of years to kind of figure it out. If it's, whether it's directly into the NHL or they take some time going through, maybe another junior season or another college season, whatever it is, you have to give them that opportunity to have a little grace in their development period. And I think Korchinski deserves a little bit of that, because if he could have played in Rockford last year, I think there'd be a completely different narrative around him, because those first year growing pains of playing professional hockey would have been with less eyes on them. And I think they would have probably hurt less, because the competition level obviously is different between the AHL and NHL. And the Ice Hogs are starting to use the Blackhawks are starting to use the Ice Hogs as more of a development team in the last few years than just a stowaway for the guys that didn't make the NHL. So I think because Korchinski had those growing pains in the NHL and it was amplified, I think that's why a lot of people are like, well, now he can go to Rockford, so he should. I still think like he's a guy that should be going through those growing pains in the NHL, should continue to develop at the NHL level. And if it's night and day, or if it's a night and day difference between him playing well and playing bad, and he's playing bad, and it's consistently like bad game, then you send him to Rockford and say, all right, let's figure it out here. Let's work out what the problem is.
He was not in an ideal situation last year with not being able to go to Rockford. And then you spent the majority of your rookie season as a 19-year-old kid having to play with Jacob Megna and Jerry Tenorti. Coming back with a full off-season, knowing now what he has to do in the NHL, working in that off-season, and then hopefully spending as many games as possible with a guy like Connor Murphy, that's a big step up from a Jacob Megna.
And if Murphy can be healthy for a majority of the season, that is an important part of it. Because also part of last year, even when he was with Murphy was battling injury.
Right.
So it wasn't even like close to 100% of Connor Murphy.
Yeah. So I think, he's it's his spot to lose. I don't think just because you struggled at times as a teenager, as a rookie, is an automatic demotion.
Right.
But, it's we'll see how it works out in training camp. If he comes out in training camp and looks doesn't look the part, doesn't look improved, then yeah, obviously you probably make that move.
Then that opens the door for Del Mastro or Kaiser or Allen.
But this is going to be a better team. He'll have a better partner.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a better team up front.
Yeah.
Part of the Korchinski's problem last year was, and this should change this year with the better forwards groups, it's really hard to be a offensive-minded defenseman as a rookie when you never have the damn puck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a big part of it.
Having Kevin Korchinski in the offensive zone a lot more this year should help the aesthetics of it all.
Right.
You should say, oh, that's why he was a 7th overall pick. It's kind of hard to do that when you're a teenager learning the NHL trial by fire in the defensive zone.
Yeah.
And you're not getting help from your partner, and you're not getting a ton of help from the forwards you're out there with. And then, it's Arvid Soderblom, so every time a guy gets by me, it's probably going to be a goal, and it looks even worse. So a lot of the team being improved around him should also help him have a better year. Not saying he's going to be a star defenseman this year by any means. He's still very young, very green, a lot to learn. But it should be better. Mm-hmm. The overall team improvement will help a guy like Kevin Korchinski.
Yeah, some people in the chat making solid points too. Like Anthony Tony says, why should Korchinski go through the growing pains in the NHL, but patience in Rockford with showing patience in Rockford with other prospects? I think you've got a year of NHL under his belt already, right? And like, even when he wasn't great, it wasn't like he was completely lost. Look, they're not just going to make a decision today and just ride it out, right? Like the prior regime.
Right.
Like, no, Kirby Doc's in the NHL. That's it. Like, okay, maybe not, right? Like, if Korchinski starts this year, which I think he probably will, unless he's horrific in training camp in the preseason, which likely won't happen.
Right.
I kind of think it's his job to lose. But if he shows that he can't hang, if there's no improvement or a regression for some reason, they'll send him back to Rockford in a heartbeat.
Right.
And I don't think if that does happen, I think what we're saying is no one should look at that as a demotion. It is technically a demotion, but you know what I mean? It doesn't mean they've lost any faith in him as a player.
On his,
right. It just means,
future.
all right, well, the jump hasn't been as quick as we thought it would be from year 1 to year 2. So let's get him back there. Let's get him dominant. Because I think for a lot of guys, too, just going back and dominating again can get your confidence built back up. And that is such a massive part of the game. I mean, just look at Lucas Reichel.
Yeah.
Last year is a great example. Gets off to a slow start. Confidence is rocked. Can't get it back. Can't get back into the top 6. Sent to Rockford. Finally gets to Rockford. It even takes him a while in Rockford to start dominating again. But then he does. Called back up, and he looks much, much better. Not great, but much better, much more noticeable, much more effective. Yeah. So the confidence boost matters. So if they deem either Korchinski can't hang or he needs that boost of confidence, it's nice that they have Rockford for an option. But if it does happen, I think we're just saying, like, don't look at that as, oh God, bust, wasted pick.
Right.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Just go back to some of the most recent drafts and look at how few games a lot of these recent defensemen have played. You know,
it takes a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we were hearing about Evan Bouchard for years. He's going to be the next good defenseman in Edmonton. He's going to be the power play quarterback, elite.
Took him 4 or 5 years to get to that level.
This was really the first year where we really saw, that's where it is. Mm-hmm. And he's
23. 24.
When was
he was drafted with Boquist in the Boquist draft.
That's what, 2018?
2018.
2018. So you're talking 5 years after his draft class. He's finally getting to that point. So Korchinski's in year 2, and Bouchard played a lot in the AHL too. So it's an option. And if he goes down, it's not the end of the world. I think he starts with the big club, and we'll see how it goes from there. And if he doesn't, I trust this team's ability with their development. And as we've mentioned, there's all these other young defensemen that if they're just better than him, then put the best guy out there. If Ethan Del Mastro is better than Kevin Korchinski during the preseason, then give the spot to Ethan Del Mastro.
Yep.
If Wyatt Kaiser is the best young defenseman out of that group in training camp, then give him the spot.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing wrong with that type of competition.
There's nothing set in stone.
I don't know. I'm just looking at the list here of like what Cap Wages has listed as the Hawks 7 defensemen: Jones, Vlasic, Murphy, Martinez, Brody, Korchinski, and Phillips. There's a spot here.
Yeah.
There's probably 2 spots here to earn. Phillips is there as a placeholder. So your 6 are Korchinski, Brody, Martinez, Murphy, Vlasic, Jones. I don't think they're married to playing Martinez or Brody every day. I think that probably both those guys were told when they signed here, you're probably not going to play every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they play physical games, so I wouldn't be, and they're up there in age, so I wouldn't be surprised if they need some like nights off.
Yeah,
maintenance nights. I
was still surprised with the second year for Brody.
Yeah.
Martinez could be that he's a guy that's struggled with injuries the past couple of years. Now playing with Vegas, you don't know the validity of those injuries. I'll say it. Good point. You don't know how hurt he really was. They might have been like, "Oh no, Alec, you're way too hurt. You can't go out there." I mean, he kind of hinted in his Zoom call that like he really didn't want to talk a lot about the Vegas stuff because he wasn't happy with how it ended there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
seems like a theme with Vegas, doesn't it?
Well, they're cold blooded out there. They might be hot outside, but they have cold hearts.
Yeah, that's how you survive the
inside.
heat.
But Martinez could be one of those guys that has a chip on his shoulder, wants to prove he can still do it, and look good, and trade him at the deadline.
Yeah.
Get a 3rd or a 4th round pick for him, trade him to a contender, and boom, that opens up 30 games for Kaiser or Del Mastro or Allen, whoever it is. There'll be opportunity. Connor Murphy's health is always in question. That can open up another 30-plus games for one of these kids to play.
Yeah.
Brody, we don't know. Like,
it's another guy looking to prove himself, though.
Yeah.
Right.
After a bad year in Toronto.
He had a rough last year in Toronto. And
then he's been a good defenseman for a really long time.
Yeah.
And he knows how to play with offensive-minded defensemen.
He's only 34.
He was the year Mark Giordano won the Norris. Who was his partner? TJ Brody.
Yeah.
So he's got that experience too. I think they're both good players to help with these young players, but they're not also cemented in there. I think they'll be in and out of the lineup. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, we've got
start effing training camp already.
Yes, please. We do have a $5 super chat we want to get to from Bragi Scald, who says, if you had a song play every time you scored a goal, what would it be? Mine would be Howlin' for You by the Black Keys.
Oh, did you play for the Coyotes? Pretty sure they.
Well, if I was in the NHL, I wouldn't have to worry about picking a goal song because I probably wouldn't score too many.
This was a mailbag.
Yeah, we did have this
question.
a while ago.
I made a playlist of the songs. Rain and Men was on there for Jay.
Yep, that's fine.
It's Rain and Men.
Weather Girls.
Yep.
Just to make people feel uncomfortable.
Greg, I remember you had
Naked
had
Ray Gun song.
Naked Ray Gun. Yeah, you
Wonder
had
Beer.
Wonder Beer.
Or that, or it would be the Imperial March from.
That's a good one.
From Star Wars. Just play the Darth.
You also
Vader
had
thing.
Yakety Sax up there. That would be a good one too.
I
mean, for the power play.
That should be played over the intercom every time the Blackhawks are in their own zone. At least last year. Hopefully, yeah.
I like the I don't know if you could use. It's probably not a whole song, but the in Kill Bill when she would get like triggered, it would play like that little siren. You know what I mean? Like, and she would kind of like.
Seen that in so long.
Oh God, it's so good. I don't know how else to describe it without getting sued. But
yeah, I haven't seen it.
I'd have to rewatch
you want something
that
gets people's attention.
Yeah,
that's why Edwin Diaz from the Mets, when he comes out with that trumpet song, is like everyone gets up for that. It's cool.
No, yeah,
that was fun last summer.
Joey, you got an entrance song you want to play if you score a goal?
Goal song.
That's a tough one. I'd have to think about it for sure. It's a big decision. So
good hockey answer, by the way.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about it for sure. Obviously, it's something I'd want to.
I don't want to rush into. I don't want to make.
You don't want to be stuck with something you hate.
I'm gonna get when I asked this to the Blackhawks at training camp that first week. I'm gonna get about 5 of those answers.
Obviously, I don't really care about music.
I just really wouldn't pick one.
It's not about me.
Whatever the team plays,
Whatever.
Just play whatever.
Whatever Chappell-Roan's new hit song is, play that one.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be, out of the teams that let the players pick their own goal songs, I'm sure one player this year is going to pick a Chappell-Roan song. Play the hits, baby. I feel like it's going to happen. I liked when the Sabres for a short time used "Let Me Clear My Throat."
That was awesome.
By DJ Kool. That was really cool. I think that's when that's still when Eichel was on the team.
I think the Ducks used Bro Hymn from Pennywise. That's a good one.
It's a classic hockey
I would
song.
use that too because that gets people going, but it's been used, so I want to be a little more original. There's some good stuff out there. It'd be kind of cool if there was like a way like guy scores a goal and then can go to the iPad on the bench and pick a song right there, depending on his mood, depending on the goal situation.
Hey Siri, play
if you just picked if you just scored like the game-winning goal like 3 seconds, you could play "FU" by CeeLo.
There you go.
Like stuff like that. Like I wish there were like the little Siri bugs in their helmet and they could just go, Siri, play this song.
If you wanna grow the sport, that's how you do it.
Some guys might get in trouble though.
All right, we're back tomorrow with Top 10 Thursday. Also my wife's birthday.
Oh, nice.
Top 10. We did goalies last week. Want to do defenseman tomorrow?
That makes perfect sense to me.
Are we doing left D and right D, or are we doing just defense?
Just if you play defense.
Yeah, if there's a defenseman in your hockey card that you qualify.
Defense.
Yeah.
All right.
If you're truly a good defenseman, you can play both sides.
That's it. Exactly. All right, we're back tomorrow at 2:30 with the top 10 defensemen in the NHL. Right now, hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2:30 on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.